James and Richard, are you willing to once again tie your financial future to this man who is effectively a liability? Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing well. To my house guests, come in, make yourselves at home, make yourselves comfortable. If you're a visitor stopping by for the first time and you'd like to become a house guest, don't forget to hit subscribe and activate all your notifications. I'm Chez, this is Chez M0i. Welcome to my place. I don't even know what to call this episode of events. Okay guys, so it's been a month now since Jeremy Clarkson's infamous Sun column in which he said the most disgusting things about Meghan Markle. You guys are already familiar with what's happened. If you're not familiar, where have you been? Where have you been? So last week, another apology was released by Clarkson on his Instagram, and it's a lot longer than his initial apology. So let's see what he said, shall we? One of the strange things I've noticed in recent times is that whenever an MP or a well-known person is asked to apologise for something, no matter how heartfelt or profound that apology may be, it's never enough for the people who called for it in the first place. So I'm going to try and buck the trend this morning with an apology for the things I said in a Sun column recently about Meghan Markle. I really am sorry, all the way from the balls of my feet to the follicles on my head. This is me putting my hands up. It's a mea culpa with bells on. Usually I read what I've written to someone else before filing, but I was home alone on that fateful day and in a hurry. So when I'd finished, I just pressed send, and then when the column appeared the next day, the landmine exploded. It was a slow rumble to start with, and I ignored it. But then the rumble got louder. So I picked up a copy of the Sun to see what all the fuss was about. We've all been there, I guess, in that precise moment when we suddenly realise we've completely messed up. You are sweaty and cold at the same time, and your head pounds, and you feel sick. I couldn't believe what I was reading. Had I really said that? It was horrible. I knew what had happened straight away. I'd been thinking of a scene in Game of Thrones, but I'd forgotten to mention this, so it looked like I really was calling for revolting violence to rain down on Meghan's head. I was very angry with myself, because in all those controversial days on Top Gear when I was accused of all sorts of things, it was very rarely sexism. We never did women can't park gags, for instance, or suggested that powerful cars were only for men. And I was thrilled when Jodie Kidd and Ellen MacArthur set fastest ever laps in our reasonably priced car. I'm just not sexist, and I abhor violence against women, and yet I seem to be advocating just that. I was mortified, and so was everyone else. My phone went mad. Very close friends were furious. Even my own daughter took to Instagram to denounce me. The Sun quickly apologised, and I tried to explain myself, but still there were calls for me to be sacked and charged with a hate crime. More than 60 MPs demanded action to be taken. ITV, who makes Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and Amazon, who make The Farm Show and The Grand Tour, were incandescent. I therefore wrote to everyone who works with me saying how sorry I was, and then on Christmas morning I emailed Harry and Meghan in California to apologise to them too. I said I was baffled by what they had been saying on TV, but that the language I'd used in my column was disgraceful, and that I was profoundly sorry. Over the last 30 years, I have written nearly 5,000 newspaper and magazine columns, so it was inevitable that one day I'd do a hurricane and sky one of the damn things, which is what happened with the piece about Meghan. So can I move on now? Not sure. It's hard to be interesting and vigilant at the same time. You never hear peals of laughter coming from a health and safety seminar, but I promise you this, I will try. Who knows? Very soon now I shall be a grandfather, so in future, maybe I'll just write about that. I don't know about you guys, but for me, this is how not to apologize. Okay. The over-explaining, the attempt to justify, the unnecessary references to other well-known personalities, I just found it insincere. And the line where he says, so can we just move on now? It's like, it didn't even need to be an issue if you had just not written the column. Let me not even say that. Write the column. That's what you do. You write columns in amongst all your other activities. But surely you could have done it in such a way that was more palatable, for want of a better phrase, because unfortunately we live in an age where everybody is super sensitive and looks for ways to be offended. Now, my offence at this column was genuine because, as I've said in previous videos, up until this column was written, I'd never said anything publicly about Harry and Meghan, because everyone else has done it. Everybody else speaks about them. Why should I? But I was genuinely offended because of the hatred. You could actually feel the hatred. And whilst, you know, you feel that you have a right to do that as a journalist, columnist, that's one thing. But back up your statements with facts. Why is it? What did she do? And this is the video that I did initially, which you guys resonated with, because to this day, as I'm speaking to you, I still don't know what she's done. I still don't know what Meghan has done. I've tried to analyze up and down, inside, outside, back to front. I still don't understand what Meghan Markle has done to the people that have a genuine hate for her. Explain what it is that she's done, especially for those of you who do not know her. I don't know Meghan Markle. Jeremy Clarkson does not know Meghan Markle. And it transpires that he's apologised to every single person. When I say every single person, his apologies so far have been directed at everyone, except for the target of his crosshairs, and that is Meghan Markle. Here's an article from Vanity Fair which explores this further. Jeremy Clarkson has apologised to everyone except Meghan Markle for his son column. In a lengthy Instagram apology, the tendentious TV host said he wasn't trying to advocate violence when he wrote about his dreams of the Duchess being publicly humiliated. In December 2018, one Sun columnist observed that media coverage about Meghan Markle had become decidedly negative and urged his audience not to be angry with her. "I can't understand why this is happening. You don't know her, I don't know her," he wrote. "At this rate, it won't be long before she is stripped and forced to walk naked through the streets of York while people with skin diseases chant shame and throw excrement at her." That columnist was Jeremy Clarkson, and at the time he could not have known how correct he was. Nearly 4 years later, he repeated the idea, but this time he was the one dreaming of Meghan being paraded naked through the streets of every town in Britain, adding that he hated her on a cellular level. The December 16 Sun column set into motion a slow-growing storm of controversy that reached a crescendo when Prince Harry called the column horrific, hurtful and cruel towards my wife in an interview with Tom Bradby that aired January 8th. Now sources tell Variety that Amazon's Prime Video, which airs Clarkson's shows The Grand Tour and Clarkson's Farm, plans to cut ties with him after already commissioned seasons of his shows air. Clarkson, who has long been a household name, is no stranger to his words and actions landing him in hot water. He hosted the BBC classic Top Gear from 1988 to 1998, and then from 2002 to 2015, when he was fired after a verbal and physical altercation with a member of the show's production team. Almost 1 year earlier, the BBC reprimanded him when he was heard saying the N-word on camera during show outtakes, but the network declined to dismiss him. He entered into a deal with Amazon in 2015 to start a similar automotive show. Clarkson's controversial column ran in the aftermath of the Netflix docuseries Harry and Meghan, in which the couple took issue with the bizarre, often racist or misogynist responses drawn by Meghan in the British media. It was clear almost immediately that Clarkson had come up with something that would join the pantheon of negative headlines provided by the show as evidence. Even his daughter, Emily Clarkson, a podcaster, took part in the condemnation. "I want to make it very clear that I stand against everything that my dad wrote about Meghan Markle, and I remain standing in support of those that are targeted with online hatred," she said in an Instagram story. Adding to the controversy was the fact that Queen Consort Camilla and Clarkson both attended a luncheon on December 14th, along with Dame Judi Dench, Piers Morgan and Dame Maggie Smith. According to the Daily Mail, the luncheon was hosted by former Fortnum & Mason CEO Ewan Venters, a friend of Camilla's. Buckingham Palace hasn't publicly commented on the controversy, but it reportedly thought that it was misleading to tie Camilla to Clarkson's comments just because they attended the same lunch. Soon, Clarkson tweeted a vague apology and said he was horrified to have caused so much hurt. On December 23rd, The Sun posted an apology to its website and took the column down at Clarkson's request. Still, the rancor continued into the new year, and after Harry's contribution to the discourse, Clarkson posted a lengthier apology to his Instagram account. In his post, Clarkson claimed that he had previously apologised to everyone he worked with and had also sent an apology to Meghan and Harry in an email on Christmas Day. "On Christmas morning, I emailed Harry and Meghan in California to apologise to them too," he wrote. "I said I was baffled by what they had been saying on TV, but that the language I'd used in my column was disgraceful and that I was profoundly sorry." According to Variety, the post came just hours before Amazon cancelled a long-planned promotional event for the show, Clarkson's Farm, which had been set to take place on Tuesday morning. Later, a spokesperson for Harry and Meghan disputed Clarkson's version of events in a statement to People. On December 25, 2022, Mr. Clarkson wrote solely to Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, and failed to include Meghan. Contrary to what Clarkson claimed, the contents of his correspondence were marked private and confidential. The spokesperson also took issue with Clarkson's rhetoric beyond this specific column. While a new public apology has been issued today by Mr. Clarkson, what remains to be addressed is his long-standing pattern of writing articles that spread hate rhetoric, dangerous conspiracy theories, and misogyny, the statement continued. Unless each of his other pieces were also written in a hurry, as he states, it is clear that this is not an isolated incident shared in haste, but rather a series of articles shared in hate. Since 2018, Clarkson has also been the host of the high-profile game show Who Wants to Be a Millionaire on ITV. On December 20th, ITV's director of television, Kevin Lygo, said he thought the column was awful, but added that Clarkson would keep his job with the network. "What he writes in a newspaper column is really more for the press to talk about than us," Lygo said, per the Daily Record. "We have no control over what he says and hire him as a consummate broadcaster of the most famous quiz on TV." On Tuesday, Deadline reported that Clarkson only has one season left on his contract with ITV. The season will be filming next month and airing this summer, and the network will have to decide whether to recommit after it airs. So this article prompted me to ask another question. Why do some men, and notice I said some, not all, why do some men find it hard to apologise to women? This article is taken from psychologytoday.com. What makes it so hard for some men to apologise? Why should they learn how to do it more often, more clearly, more cleanly? Let's start with some reasons I've seen men struggle with apologising. Number 1, admitting I'm wrong. If I admit I'm wrong, that I made a mistake, it means I'm somehow lesser in some way, less competent, less intelligent, less together. Number 2, yes-butting. This sounds like, yes, I yelled at you, but only because you did blank to me. A variation on number 1, it seems to stem from a man not being able to take clear responsibility for what he did wrong. Number 3, vulnerability and weakness. For me to say I'm sorry is for me to be vulnerable in the moment in front of you, to make myself open to you. For a man, this can feel very threatening and it can get conflated with being weak. It would appear, however, that he now regrets his decision to apologise, as reported by The Express. Meghan, 41, and Prince Harry, 38, have reportedly rejected the Clarkson's Farm star's apology. It comes after Jeremy revealed he sent an email to the Duke of Sussex on Christmas morning to explain his comments and also offered an apology. The former BBC star has since taken to Twitter and liked a post which rejected Jeremy's olive branch, claiming the presenter should have never apologised. Twitter user Stephen penned, "Oh, Jeremy Clarkson, you've caved into the woke by apologising, and Amazon are still going to cancel you anyway. Was it worth it?" Never explain, never apologise. You've lost my respect. Jeremy's account has since liked post in view of his 7.9 million followers, despite his recent apology. His liking the tweet comes just one day on from the Grand Tour presenter revealing he sent an email to Prince Harry on Christmas Day to apologise for his comments about the Duchess of Sussex. Now, I think it's safe to say we can all agree that this guy loves Game of Thrones. He's their number 1 fan. I realise that now. And because he's the number 1 fan of that show, he expected everyone else to be part of the fandom. He used the same Game of Thrones reference in his 2018 article when he was defending Meghan. He didn't know her in 2018. As far as I know, he does not know her to this day as I'm recording this video in January 2023. So what happened between 2018 and 2022 when he wrote this article in The Sun last month? What prompted all of this hatred, and why did he use the same Game of Thrones reference in both columns? I mean, that has to be his most favourite scene out of the whole series, I guess. Because it's kind of vile. I mean, it's quite sick. So does he have an obsession with excrement and skin diseases and, you know, women being paraded naked through the streets of Britain? Is this what he said he dreams about it. Is this what's plaguing him? Is this what's disturbing him? That his fantasy hasn't yet come to pass? Is that the reason? I mean, if you sat down and asked him, what is the reason you don't like this woman? What did she do? I can guarantee he would not be able to tell you. He would not be able to give you a valid, cogent argument, because there isn't one. And I suspect he doesn't even know himself. I personally like to form my own opinions based on my experience of that person, not based on the experience of other people who are coming to tell me, oh, she's done this and she's done that. This has happened within not my immediate family, but I know there's one person, I'm not going to name any names obviously, but a relative, his ex-wife was horrible to him, horrible to everyone. And I personally witnessed certain things that had happened. But to me, she was never she's always been nice to me. So whilst I understand the experience that other people have had of her, I can't say that I've had the same experience. Therefore, I'd rather not say anything at all. I've been misjudged by people purely based on what they've been told by someone else. They've never had a conversation with me. They've never been in my space. But they're very quick to believe the negative information that they've been fed by someone who claims to have known me in depth, and they haven't. So we have to be very careful not to judge people, prejudge, have prejudices against people who we don't even know. Years later, the same people that had a negative opinion of me, having since had conversations with me and interacted with me, have informed me that they have felt badly about the way they treated me because of the opinions that they were told about me. I hope that makes sense, because I'm not going to say it again. Jeremy Clarkson is not a novice at this type of behaviour. But for some reason, even if he later realises that there are consequences, he seems to forget that the consequences don't just stop with him. They extend to the people that he works with. They extend to people that he's close to. The article I'm going to show you next is with regard to one of the guys that he's worked with for a long, long time, Richard Hammond. And they used to work on Top Gear together. When Jeremy Clarkson punched the producer, he got sacked. The two guys that work with Clarkson, they had to go because they axed the show. And this is what Richard talks about in this article. This article is from NottinghamPost.com. Richard Hammond's daughter thought family couldn't afford KFC after Jeremy Clarkson row. Richard Hammond has revealed the extent of his and his family's financial worries after he left the BBC and Top Gear in 2015. The TV presenter, 53, was left with no income after a shock exit from the show, after co-star Jeremy Clarkson was suspended and then axed for an unprovoked physical attack on producer Oisin Timon. I hope I've pronounced that correctly. With no finances coming in, Hammond was left worrying over being able to afford private school tuition for his two daughters and his private castle home, reports the Mirror. He wasn't the only one worried, as daughter Izzy also feared the family couldn't afford the basics and even a KFC takeaway. In the Fueling Around podcast, Hammond explained, "After we finished the show, James had come over to stay with me for a few days." That's James May, for those of you who don't know. We'd gone to Kentucky Fried Chicken to get lunch for everyone with Izzy. We got to the front of the queue, put our order in, and James typically said, Oh, I'll pay, Hammond. And I said, No, mate, I'll pay. And he said, No, I'll pay. And there was a pause, just when the whole restaurant had gone quiet, and Izzy said, Well, technically, lads, I should pay, as you haven't got a job between you. And the place detonated with laughter. Financial worries could be set to rear their head again for Hammond. He, alongside Meghan Clarkson, are facing uncertainty around their programme, The Grand Tour, on Amazon Prime. If the Grand Tour is stopped, it could hit Hammond hard, as he has reportedly been ploughing money into his classic car restoration business, The Smallest Cog. Co-star James May has already admitted to finding the current scandal and uncertainty difficult. Jeremy Clarkson has been afforded the luxury of that privilege to verbalise his views because he believes there are no consequences. However, he clearly now knows, after how many years of doing this type of thing, that there are consequences. There is a time and a place for these things, i.e. in the privacy of your own home, where you can espouse these misogynistic and xenophobic opinions. You're in your own home. No one can tell you what to say in your own home if you really feel that way. But then to issue an apology saying that you're not sexist, you're not a misogynist, what are you then, sir? Because these are words that were in your head. You had the vim to use your fingers to type them, and you said you just press send. You know, you just thought it was okay just to press send and not because you were in a hurry. No. No one's buying that. No reasonable thinking person is buying that. You're explaining yourself too much. And that's why I believe your apology is not genuine. Too much explaining. And the fact that you didn't even apologize directly to this woman. And that's why I wanted to know, what is the problem with men, some men apologizing to women? To apologize to Meghan Markle would have made Jeremy Clarkson look as weak as dishwater. And because pride is so prevalent in someone like him, he dare not lower himself. I'm making an obvious statement right now. Men do not think the same as women. Women are more ready to apologize because they just want a resolution and be able to move on. Jeremy Clarkson wants to move on by issuing some lengthy, mealy-mouthed attempt at an apology. As far as he's concerned, it's done now. He wants to move on. You opened the can of worms. What did you expect? What did you expect? And then when we talk about the question of free speech, is free speech really free? I don't know if any of you guys listen to Diary of a CEO, the podcast that is run by Stephen Bartlett, but he interviewed Stephen Fry. And for those of you outside the UK, Stephen Fry is a very famous actor in this country. And he was in the podcast, he was talking about this idea of free speech, from what I can remember, because it was, I think it was a couple of months ago that I was listening to this when I was in the park. And he said that he called Piers Morgan, and that for the whole of what he was saying to Piers, every word was an expletive, and it was variations of the worst word that you can imagine beginning with C. And Piers was taken aback, and he's like, no, you can't say that. You can't say that on here. Piers Morgan is an advocate of free speech. But when Stephen Fry spoke to him in such a vile way, Piers Morgan was taken aback. He said, no, you can't say that on here. And Stephen Fry's saying, but this is free speech. Why? You know, surely this is free speech. I'm free to say what I want to say. Piers had to concede that free speech isn't really free. Free speech isn't free because you have to take into consideration your audience. Whilst your audience may share your views, the way in which you express them is not necessarily how your audience would express those same views. You have to be careful. Financially, free speech is not free. Richard Hammond and James May now find themselves in the same position they faced a few years ago with this Top Gear incident. It's exactly the same thing now, because Jeremy Clarkson's been cancelled. Their pocket has been affected. And, you know, I think to myself, okay, James and Richard, are you willing to once again tie your financial future to this man who is effectively a liability? You've done it twice now, at least twice. And for some reason, you're not understanding that when you're tied to this man, your financial future is not secure. Free speech isn't free because it all comes down to money. And again, I'll ask the question, why do we say that we live in a civilized society when this clearly demonstrates there's no civility in what Clarkson said? His attitude is not civilized as far as I'm concerned. Do I believe in cancel culture? I actually don't. There are a lot of people that like Jeremy Clarkson, and they're entitled to. Who am I to say who you should like and who you don't like? Jeremy Clarkson, by the same token, is entitled not to like Meghan Markle. You don't have to like anyone. But for me, is this level of hatred, where does it come from? I'm just curious. What's the reason? What's the reason that you would put your livelihood in jeopardy because you needed to express your hatred for this woman so much. You just could not keep it in. And now it's affected your pocket. As a 62-year-old man with a grandchild on the way, your daughter's denounced you. Your employers are disgusted with you. You said they're incandescent. As a 62-year-old man, when are you going to learn that in this day and age, in 2023, in the digital age, oh my goodness, sorry about this. Okay, now I've lost my train of thought. Okay, yeah, as a 62-year-old, when most people are reaching retirement age, I mean, this guy can work. He still has the ability to work. He's able-bodied. He's still mobile. But that's not the issue. The issue is, how many more times are you going to allow your opinions to stand in the way of your finances? These jobs that are readily available, you've passed your prime now. You've had your chance. There's a new generation of presenters coming up who could easily take your job. I personally don't believe in cancel culture, because it's like you can cancel anyone for anything, and I don't believe that that's the route we should go down. I would just say that people like Jeremy Clarkson, who have these views, you have a right to have the view, but it's the way in which you express them. And then you express the view, but you can't back up what you've said. Is Jeremy Clarkson going to learn from this? He wants to move on. I think we all want to move on, because this is really, like, this has been a month now. Harry and Meghan apparently have not accepted his apology. And to be quite honest, I don't blame them, because he's not directly apologised to Meghan. He apologised to Harry as another Englishman. He's not going to apologise to Meghan because she's a woman, you know, she's not English, she's less than him. She, as far as he's concerned, from what I've observed, Meghan is inferior to him, and that's the attitude that he always has, and that's why he references people's ethnicity when he abuses them. Like I said, do your research and you'll understand what I'm talking about. It's a shame, because a lot of people do like Jeremy Clarkson. He represents, like him and Piers, they represent what a lot of people think in this country, but a lot of people don't have the guts to say what they say. And I just think, I don't have a problem with them having those views. It's just the way that they're expressed. And then you've got to come with, what did this person actually do to you? Then I'd be able to understand. I'd be able to, obviously I won't agree with what you said, but it will help me to understand why you said what you've said. That's all I'm asking. If you can back up what you've said, you know, because it gets really boring when it's like, oh, Meghan Markle's this, Meghan Markle's that. Okay, but what evidence do you have for that? It's only what you've heard through your buddies at the press. What real evidence do you have that this woman displays the characteristics that you think she does? It just doesn't make sense. For Meghan Markle to generate so much vitriol just by being who she is, I applaud her. And I recognise her as an extremely powerful woman. Why do I say that? If I truly have no regard for someone, as far as I'm concerned, they don't exist. I don't give them a second thought, let alone a first thought. If I do not have a regard for someone, they are not going to rent space in my head. That's one thing people know about me. I don't talk about that person. I don't acknowledge that person. They're not in my space. They will never have that power over me. I can't afford to give that power away. So this whole saga has reinforced my belief that if you have haters, you're doing something right. I've always believed that. I've experienced that. I'm not going to change as a person. I am not going to change as a person to please other people. Meghan's not going to do that. She is who she is. She's not going to change to suit what the public think is acceptable. And why should she? You guys wouldn't. You guys wouldn't do that. You wouldn't do that. So why do you expect her to do that? And I get the thing of, you know, people like to be liked. We all like to be liked, but some to a greater degree and some to a much lesser degree. For me personally, and I've talked about this in a previous video about people pleasing, I went through a phase where I used to be a people pleaser, a chronic people pleaser. And then I got to an age where I'm like, no, if you don't like me, I don't care. I do not care. I've got to live my life that I'm happy with, not that you're happy with. I actually don't care. That's my position. And it served me very well. I'm not going to change to suit you. Meghan Markle is not going to change to suit you. You talk about her being an actress. The entire royal family are actors. They've got to perform, because if they don't perform, you're not going to like them. They have a chronic need to be liked. Jeremy Clarkson has a chronic need to be liked. Otherwise, he wouldn't have made how many attempts at an apology, because he didn't gauge the mood. He thought that everybody thought like he did. There's a certain number of people who think like he thinks, but no, not everybody thinks like he thinks. Even people that have no time for Meghan Markle, they were disgusted. I've talked about that before. This platform of privilege is giving way for many of these people. And when it starts to affect their pocket, that's when they realise they need to be careful what they say. Like I said, I don't believe in cancel culture. Looking at him as a human being, I hope that he's not financially ruined, because I wouldn't like that for myself. So why would I want that for someone else? I just hope that he's realised that the way that he writes columns now in the 21st century is not how he wrote them in the 20th century. We're living in a different time, and certain things are no longer acceptable. When we talk about mental health, mental illness, when you think about the fact that Meghan calmly considered taking her own life, but she's still here. The hypocrisy, as far as I'm concerned, lies with those people who go on and on about mental health, but they dismiss what she said. They discount her experience. And they say that she's whining too much. She's complaining too much. She's in a privileged position. Basically, she should not have any mental health issues. That's what they're saying. And I'm going to show you this article from the Express. Meghan Markle told stop playing the victim by leading mental health charity founder. Meghan Markle previously opened up about her own mental health struggles, particularly referring to her short time as a senior royal. The Duchess of Sussex has been called out for playing the victim by charity founder and investigative journalist Marjorie Wallace. Speaking on Rachel Johnson's Difficult Women podcast, Ms. Wallace opened up about what she thought of the 41-year-old making the decision to discuss that she developed suicidal thoughts while in the royal family in the Netflix docuseries Harry and Meghan. Speaking on the podcast, Ms. Wallace said, "I don't like victimhood, and I've never played it myself." While discussing the Duchess of Sussex, she said, "I don't think playing the victim card helps, whatever you're the victim of. I really don't respect people who take victimhood on as a career." She added, "You've got to find ways of living with whatever disability or disadvantage you have." The veteran journalist, who was a close confidant of the Earl of Snowdon for more than 40 years, said everyone, whether they're privileged or they're poor, has troubles in their lives. Meghan is her mother's only child. I am the mother of an only child. If my daughter came and told me that she was seriously considering taking her life in a calm and measured way, God forbid that would ever happen, but I put myself in the position of Meghan's mother. People are evil. That's what I've observed from this whole thing. People are evil, and they will not stop until this woman is dead. I think that's the aim of the press. They literally want this woman gone. They want her dead. And that's not me being dramatic. That's what I'm starting to realise. They actually want this woman dead. Meghan has 2 young children to care for. She has a husband who adores her. She has friends who love her. And she has people who revere her. Jealousy is not called the green-eyed monster for nothing. And all you have to do is speak to her half-sister. The people that look like her half-sister are also the ones who have hatred for Meghan. Because like Meghan's father, they've opened the door for people to just say what they want to say, because as far as they're concerned, if her half-sister and her dad can speak in this way, I can speak in this way. So guys, as I wrap up this video, I want to leave you with these questions. Do you think that Jeremy Clarkson will change his ways after this latest episode in his catalogue of abuse? Why, if it's true, do you think he only apologised to Harry and not to Meghan? Do you think that he should have been cancelled? And do you think he'll be able to attract any more lucrative TV opportunities in the future? Or do you think he shouldn't be given any more chances to make a living? Let me know in the comments. In conclusion, I just want to thank you for watching all the way to the end of this video. Don't forget to hit the like button. And if you're a visitor, you want to become a house guest, don't forget to hit subscribe, activate all your notifications. Enjoy the rest of your day, and you should catch me in the next video.
I have a humble brag here, but I have like a 2-degree separation with Meghan Markle. My husband used to work with her on the set of Suits. Now, my husband, in my opinion, is a wonderful judge of character. Like, if my husband doesn't like someone, it's for good reason, and I usually trust his judgment. And he's also not the type to like gas someone up or hype someone else up for no reason whatsoever. He's very honest. And according to him, someone that knows her and knew her, she is one of the nicest, most genuine people. He had not one negative thing to say about her. And in an industry where everyone's nose is turned up and, you know, people think their shit don't stink. And my husband's not an actor. He was on the crew. And he said she treated everyone with not only respect, but she was just a sweet person, a genuine person. She was great to her fans. She always stopped for an autograph. She always stopped to talk to people. She was nice to everyone. And people like that don't just change overnight into some narcissistic liar. So, yeah. Especially when she hasn't shown that. But whatever. You're entitled to your imaginary opinion on someone. Bye.